I had a message that really just been resonating with me lately that I feel like I just need to share in this video. So I didn't really practice. I don't have any notes for this one, so I'm just gonna let this one flow. But the importance of finding time to rest as we grow. I think there has been like this really big shift and a push towards telling everybody that, if you're not hitting these milestones by 21, you're somehow behind. And I often find in reality that's pretty far from the case. And it's just, I think from the perspective of learning to rest as you're on this journey, you're going to be able to go a lot farther. And I'm not telling you that hard work and sacrifice, like, it doesn't matter. And I think we make that sound a lot more challenging than what it is. Sacrifices, you can do anything you want, you just can't do everything. And it's just being thoughtful about how you make decisions, right? Like, it's definitely okay to go out and hang out with friends, but if you do that every day, that can be a pretty expensive lifestyle. And if you got it that way, great. But it's also comes at a cost of other things you could be doing. So that's just one quick example. But anyway, I say, all that to say is, I've learned that, it's really important to rest along the journey so you have the endurance to build and be able to go further. And if you're so focused on the end destination and you're rushing, you're gonna potentially miss key moments and some pretty sweet things along the way that you can't go back and capture. And you can go back and reflect on it later, but it's not the same of being present in the moment. And listen, we're gonna live our own lives, but I think one of the things that I've learned, I've just been really reflective since I've been 40, and I feel a responsibility to share, I think, candidly, from my mistakes and the things that I've learned in life to be able to have an impact on the next generation. And so this just been really resonating with me as I talk to more and more young people, this pressure to feel like they should be so far along. And, when I tell them that it didn't really start to click for me until I was probably 35, I have a lot of people who look at me like, really, really shocked. This is based off, where I am today. And, they don't see a lot of the things behind the scenes that I struggle with, probably later in my life than I like to admit, where I struggle with money management. And, yes, I can go back and kick myself for the things I could have did or didn't do. But those lessons that I've picked up along the way are going to be so valuable on this road. And I find that if you can really be focused on being great at the thing you're doing in the moment, it can go an extremely long way. And people that rush often lead to burnout. Before I was doing what I do today for another company, I kind of pushed myself to a point of burnout, always thinking about the next role. And, the things that I really enjoyed about my job became annoying because I never internally worked to a place of like gratitude. And if you've been, watching a couple videos on this channel, that's something I really like to talk about is, the importance of gratitude. And as I think back on those moments, it really informed how I showed up today. And I've done pretty much the same thing for the last 8 years, and I thoroughly enjoy what I do. And it's not that much different than what I did for the other company, but, I think it's partly due to how I approach the work today, a lot more seasoned. And, even though I was really young in my profession, back then, I think I've picked up a lot along the way where I'm even more thoughtful about where I spend my energy to be the most impactful and not doing the most work. And so one of the first lessons that I would like to share is that busy don't always equal fulfilled. I talked in my last video about the importance of finding work that fulfill you. And if you're doing work that's not aligned with, your spirit, like it's gonna always be, you're gonna always be empty. And I think that applies to relationships and a lot of different things. If it doesn't really align with who you are and it's forced and it becomes a task, something that you have to really like consciously think about, it's going to be really challenging for you to like have that spark. So busy doesn't always equal fulfilled. And so I think it's very important that people align themselves with the work that really calls to their spirit. And if you're not in a position to change the work that you're doing, you're always in a position to change the way that you approach that work. And I know that sounds a little bit backwards, but I don't care where you are. Most of us hopefully are doing something that we can find impactful. But if we're not, right, like only you can change that decision. But I think about some of the industries that we don't always get to appreciate, and that's like the food and service industry. You know, I started off in the food and service industry, you know, working at a Pizza Hut, and I learned a lot. And people can say it's a low-paying job, but one of the things I learned was the value of being able to serve one community. And for me, like we were the only Pizza Hut in that neighborhood. And when people ordered pizza for whatever event that they were doing, whether it was watching a football game with their friends and family, whether it's, you know, a kid's birthday party, you know, I really challenge my teams to think about our responsibility to get those moments right. And yeah, we could have just said, oh my God, it's a busy day, we got to make all these stupid pizzas. And that's how some people wanted to approach the work. But I felt, you know, my job as a early shift leader was to really get my team to think differently about our responsibility. And, you know, we all signed up to be here, so we were getting something out of it. And we made it fun. We used to have competitions on who can make pizza the fastest. I mean, I think about all the things that we did to keep, you know, our delivery times up. You know, obviously we didn't have people breaking the law, but my drivers were hungry to get as many orders out as a timely matter as possible. We had such a really good team. You know, one of my early assistant managers, somebody I worked for, this guy named Chad. I don't even think Chad knew how, you know, effective of a leader he was. You know, Chad was super chill, threw parties at his house, but like on the shift, like we got stuff done. And, you know, Chad would just hit you with some really thoughtful stuff. And actually, was that the best way to approach it? This guy was like 23. And it was just, I think, you know, people don't understand, but the way he got us to approach the work, you know, bled into me even more. I also worked at the Walgreens next door, and same idea. People was proud to serve that community, and we knew our regulars, what they would need, you know, and it was again, it was something we got to do. And, you know, I think it's, you know, my generation's responsibility to be able to share some of those insights, because nobody teach you how to do that when you're in the workforce today. Like everything is so fast paced, and, you know, people are just trying to get a job to make some ends meet. But it's important to approach everything with excellence, and that's just become your brand. Because when you just had that mentality, when you do move on to that thing that really calls you, it's gonna already have you just focus on being able to do it in an excellent way. But you're so talented, whoever it is, like I said, as a leader, as an individual, as a creator, you're so talented when you do things that line up with what speaks to you. And if you're in something that you don't feel like you're good at and it's not calling to you, like you gotta challenge yourself to do something different. You either gotta do different work that do call to you, or you gotta change the way you're approaching it to find some value. And I say you should be able to learn something in everything you do. Even, again, like I learned so much in fast food, just how to take care of people, understanding like what people value, just the responsibility to deliver on commitments. And yeah, was it the best job? No, like I went home smelling like pizza all the time. But at the same time, I got to take home some pies back in the day. And so that wasn't that bad of, you know, an exchange. And so, listen, I think if you have an opportunity to serve people, you can find some value in that, because I tell you, everybody that's successful that you see does some service for people. Actor, right? They take people's mind off stress. They put out really good art, content, right? They entertain us, so they're paid in like. Same thing with athletes. If you think about most business people, they're providing some type of service to somebody, to the world. But I'm sure it's something that really like aligns with their passions. And so they don't have to think about it as hard. So what can you take from what you're doing just to find a little bit of fulfillment? And I tell you, the next step is just be the person that you want to be. And I'm always challenging myself where I want to be in 10 years. And if I know where I want to be in 10 years, what would that person be doing today? Like just that, I know it sounds a little cliche, but like that, having a conversation with yourself. Like, hey, write a letter. Like, what would your future self be telling yourself today? The first time I did it, it was very, very, very cheesy. But I will tell you, now that I've kind of have it part of like one of my bi-weekly journaling prompts, I just think about, different periods. And it's funny how those things consistently align. And I'm like, I approach what I do today as if I'm that person already. And it kind of gets me in that feeling. And it gives me the courage to take on new things. Something, as I've struggled when I had, doubtful thoughts. And again, we often have those thoughts because we don't feel like we're capable. And I've been there recently. So I really want you to know that you are capable of anything you put your mind to. And if it's something that is calling to you, like, what's the first thing that the person, I'm trying to say this right, but what would be like I said, if you were that person today that you wanted to be, that was doing that thing, right? The rock star, the athlete, the writer, the entrepreneur, what do you think that person would be doing today? And just start with something small. Start with something that's almost laughably small. Laughably small. It can be printing off sheet music if you want to learn, how to play the guitar, and putting it on your refrigerator. And who knows, just doing that motion might lead to you shopping guitars and in a couple weeks getting one. Like, you just never know. But do something laughably small. And that usually gets you back to this place of being a little bit more fulfilled in the work. If you're in that place, go help somebody, right? The things are supposed to align with what your organizational goals, wherever you're at. But you can always just start delivering more. And I promise you, when you just deliver more just because you want to make the people around you day better, so many things open up. And you've been experiencing that a little bit. I've been talking to people a lot that's like trying new things and they're like wondering why they're getting different response from people. And it's great when I can just highlight and double click. It's like, well, what have you done different? All right. And so like we create our own dynamics and environments. And so when we're not getting the things that we think we should be, it's always a good thing to have an internal reflection moment. And I find myself whenever I'm stuck, just even recently, just getting back into shooting videos, it was having that internal dialogue, because I was starting to deprioritize these as, they were not having a reach that I wanted. But again, they're having reach, and I wasn't doing it for, nothing glamorous. It was just that the videos helped a handful of people. I think they were worth these little strolls. And I love to walk anyway, so I'm going to be walking. Why not walk with a handful of people? And that's how I've been approaching it. We'd love to hear some things in the comments, though, if we get to this point of the video. This is just a nice little impromptu stroll. I have to shoot these a lot later or a lot earlier here in Georgia. It gets hot really fast. It's like 98 degrees again today. And that sun is, whew. Listen, got to keep this hat on. But right now it's pretty decent, still really humid. I can't get out of the car without my glasses immediately fogging. Just to kind of explain how humid it consistently is, but not complaining. Really enjoying myself down here. But that is all, folks. Thank y'all again. If you haven't already, if you're watching, like and subscribe. I'll see y'all soon.